and welcome to the Cellar Sessions podcast. You've got today me, Anna Spooner, your co-host,
and myself, Alexandre Fréguin, who's going to invite you to travel a little bit today.
And where are we going to be traveling?
In the largest island of the Mediterranean Sea, this lovely Sicily.
Beautiful. And Alex, what makes you well equipped to talk about Etna?
Funny enough, we both have a strong love for this Etna wine region. But I started to work alongside them since last year. And more I dig into this appellation, more I realize that it could be the next treasure on the wine world. So let's have a look.
Nice. Yeah, so maybe I can kick off and start by saying where it is. So thank you for reminding me. It's in the southern part of Italy. So Sicily as an island, the bottom of the boot of Italy. It's like the football that the boot is kicking, right? Which is rather cool. We'll do a session on traveling and how to get there at a later date. But it's in the south of Italy, so you expect it to be very warm. You expect it to, it's also an island, so you expect it to have some quite challenging weather patterns. So maybe some more rain than you would expect. It's surrounded by ocean, it's surrounded by sea, so it can be quite erratic. But that sea also moderates the temperature. So we'll talk a little bit about the altitude in a moment. But the sea will moderate generally the temperature. But it will make it slightly more rainy than you might expect. But it's still a warm place. Southern Italy, warm, warm, warm. And what else can I say about it? Well, I think I'll tell you what, I'll talk about Etna as an actual volcano in a second. But I would like, as an official sort of demi-ambassador of the region, tell me the history of the island of Sicily.
It's a very tormented island, actually. That if we put it back in perspective, we must imagine that it's an island that has seen many, many different governance. It has been for 2 centuries under Islamic rules. It has been under the Vandals, under the Goths, under the Byzantine Empire. So when we talk about, and of course the Scrib, which is a tribe that also ruled the place, it's actually the tribe that gave the name to Sicily, the Scribs. So there is a lot going on this lovely piece of land, but it's also, if we look at the position, it's in the middle of the sea. It was a sort of bypass to access to other continents. So, of course, it was a very important position for trade, and Sicily has been well known for any kind of trade. Then Sicily exploded a little bit in the 18th century when a guy from Liverpool, a Scouse, came to visit apparently this place and discovered that there is wine tasting like Madeira. And that's what we call Marsala. It was in 1770 something. John Woodhouse. Then we had an episode of Phylloxera, which ended up giving the title to Sicily by being one of the home place of what they used to call Vino di Taglio. Vino di Taglio was basically what has been in France for us the vin médecin, or the doctor's wine.
Right.
That were not meant to be commercialized, but just here to give a bit of a boost to other region. Sicily, what could we say also? Largest region under vineyard. Just for the facts. Nearly 120,000 hectares. Fourth in production in Italy, and it's actually producing 2/3 of white and 1/3 of red. That's a lovely fact. Then if we focus a little bit more on the Etna, Etna, first of all, gave its name, and as its name coming from what was called in the Phoenician times, Atuna. And funny enough, Atuna at this time used to mean furnace or oven. So the name was very well given. And the Mount Etna is a contraction of Monte and Jibel. And Monte means mount, as we know, and Jibel in Arabic means mount. So it's actually a mount called double times mount.
The mountain.
How important it is. And the Mount Etna is surrounded by the Nairobi and also the Apennine Sicilian mountains. So it's a mount within the mounts. If we didn't understand that we're going to talk about altitude. And if we give one more fact, Etna DOC, so it's an old DOC, 1968, which was the first, one of the first batch of DOC in Italy, has had a sort of like very, very interesting times when it comes to hectares, because it was 50% of the entire Sicily plantation, more than 15,000 hectares planted.
Wow.
And in 2010, dropped to less than 700 hectares. And now we are back to 1,500 hectares and leaving a little bit of a momentum, wines from the Etna. This is why the consortium also stipulated and regulated this. The Etna DOC is not allowed to extend more than 50 hectares a year within the 3 next years coming, as we are talking about 2026. And each winery within these 50 hectares is not allowed to grow more than 1 hectare, which I found pretty smart.
Wow.
Because we're going to discuss very actual topic, the colors of the red in the next episode and so on, the comparison with Barolo also. But it's something that not trying to rush into growing too quick, which will be a disaster for such demanding viticultural place, and of course demanding because of its volcano. So if you want to give us a bit more insight about this lovely fiery place.
For sure, the fiery place. And just picking up on something you said there, I love that Etna's DOC is regulating its growth, because we've seen places, like the Prosecco DOC in Italy growing too quickly, and Chianti historically as well. So I'm pleased to hear that. That was news to me, but you're a man on the inside, so that's good to know. So, it's a very high, you've said it's a mountain within a mountain. So it's an active volcano and very tall. So it's 3,300 meters high, something like that. And it's about 45 kilometers across the base. The mountain itself is produced by lava flow. So it's been shaped by the lava flow. You have these black ash stones called lapilli, which are beautiful and cool. But also the wine growing section is really a horseshoe around the south and the east, particularly of the mountain, a little bit to the north, but you don't find it to the west. That's where you've still got a lot of active lava. So not very helpful if you're being covered in lava during your growing
If I
season.
may say, it's actually constantly in eruption.
Constantly erupting, yes.
And actually, it's even a little bit, just to give a bit of insight on the geeky part, it's actually not eruptive, it's effusion. It's actually a volcano which is constantly sweating by gas rather than eruption.
Yeah.
Just not to break down that lava thing that I love, because it's super engaging and beautiful to watch. But it's also created by a neighboring volcano. And the one from the neighboring island from Lipari had a lot of eruptive ones. And by the winds, the 5 winds that are blowing around this lovely island has been transported to the lava type of soil. So you have a different origin of of lava on this volcano. But that was just a fun fact.
So, well, I want you to continue your fun facts. But before, actually, I'm going to ask you about soil, because I think that's very important. But what's interesting about you saying this kind of constant gas spewing is one thing that really strikes me when you visit Etna is that the skies aren't always that clear. Right? You can get this kind of like haze, which is very interesting, and it can be very atmospheric, very moody, very cloudy. I was at a wedding actually there a couple of years ago, and all of the pictures are amazing. We have Etna in the background with these incredible clouds. It's a very magical place to visit. But more on that on our visiting episode. So, Alex, Soil King, Etna King, tell me, what makes the soils of Etna so special?
Well, Etna is basically it's a volcano which is originating from a submarine movement, and it has been like 2 fractions of the African and Eurasian tectonic plate that just decided to meet at some point. The formation is more than 500 years ago. And,
more than 500 years ago.
500,000 years ago.
Good.
But the volcanic activity, the strong one, became highly active 1,500 years before our era. So it's a long-term ongoing thing. Then if we look at the place and the formation, you mentioned it's going north to south. There is 4 different sectors, the northern one, the oriental one, the southeast one, and the southwest one. That's the 4 divided sectors that you can have from the coolest site. When I mean cool is not cool kids, it's temperature-wise and climate-wise, to the warmest parts. If we focus on the soil, you have more than 46 different variations of lava into it. Funny enough, it's highly rich in nutrients, but it's quite poorly disponible. Once again, it's a sort of unfertile type of soil where the importance of the age of the vine will play a key role, and other elements of viticulture. Realizing that there is a few nice names, that the Schiari, the Ripidu, the Allophane, they're all names that are related to soil. But if we divide it in 2, the Schiari is like the lava flow, and the Ripidu will be the projection of ashes. Also, we could divide, as I said, in 40 different types of lava, and I'm sure that in 100 years we will realize that there is 46,000 variation. But all the color of the lava is related to a molecule which is called pyrozene, and pyrozene will just give you the different type of variation. That's going to have an influence if we compare it to the tuffeau, which is a cooked limestone in the Mont-Louis and Vouvray. That's basically that sort of element that will give the variation and not just the location. So then the importance of the lava flow will also give different movement of soil. It's the same like a river, basically, but it's a river I don't want to be swimming in. And then you will have more or less sandy results. You will have more thin grain sand, or more vulgar or richer style. When I talk about the nutriment, what is important is the iron content, the manganese content, and the potassium content, which if we link it directly to the way that the plant will behave, for example, potassium is related to potass, and in a non-irrigated vineyard, it's going to have a very high importance in the finished one, because it's not going to have a direct impact on the higher the pH, which will mean lowering lowering the pH the pH relationship. Basically, it's not going to have any incidence on the acidity of the finished wine. But one thing I came across, which are studies led by Emmanuel Gagnepin, a very, very influent consultant when it comes to soil. He's actually creating new domain just based on soil analysis, which is quite fascinating. The relationship with magnesium and manganese and iron is probably one of the nutriments where we have the first scientific result with a direct relationship with the finished wine.
Controversial.
I had a nice discussion, not as far as yesterday, and it was quite heated in a good way. So, there you go for the soil. But if I may say and ask you the question, there is something a bit romantic into volcanic,
for sure,
volcanic area and volcanic wine region into the finished wine, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will put the negative hat on here and say that the evidence is limited. So as much as you've just spoken beautifully about, magnesium, high potassiums, yes, nutrients and nutrient availability. I'm glad you mentioned that as well. Nutrient availability. It doesn't not just the fact that they're in there, but can the plant access them? Yes, that makes a difference. Yes, the fact that the soils are low acid makes a difference. But I think it's complicated to say that volcanic soils, there's a lot of talk about, volcanic soils make this energy or they make this minerality. The jury is still out. So I am going to be negative and say that I think, yes, that's important, but let's not forget as well drainage. Drainage in volcanic soils behaves very differently. And also the color of the soils. I find that, reflective. Lots of the soils are quite dark. You mentioned that as well. So that can retain some heat too. There's the beautiful romantic stuff that makes us think, oh, yeah. We've got...
Sorry to be a romantic.
Well, I'm the realist over here saying, hey, let's... But I do think, in 10 years, maybe we'll know, maybe we'll understand it better. I'm not trying to say it doesn't exist. I'm just saying the relationship is maybe tenuous between some of these things. But hey, people write whole books on this subject. So, and studies, and maybe we'll know more eventually.
That's a definitive topic that I like the scientific romance about it.
Nice. Yeah, where science and romance meet. You mentioned something that I want to talk about as well.
Good.
Because, I know that you host lots of masterclasses on Etna, and one comparison that you have enjoyed making is between Etna and Barolo. And maybe that's slightly controversial as well. Lots of articles written, oh, Etna is the new Burgundy, blah, 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 blah. Why for you is Etna the new Barolo?
I will not say new. I will say that they can... I will say that the Etna is Barolo's brothers from the south. It's like if you were joining... They have similar points. They are connected to mountains. Mm-hmm. Piedmont, Mount Etna. It's written in the title. Then, of course, the way that single vineyard have been divided, you will touch on that a little bit later on, but they both built a system which is actually very important to mention, not a hierarchy system in terms of quality. It's really identifying site by the elevation, the exposure, and the adaptability with the right suited grape with the site expression. Mount Sanaghetti did an incredible work for the MGA, which is the Barolo version of the Contrada in Sicily and in Etna. Etna did that program, the Contrada, the first Contrada, they were in 2011. Barolo was 2010. So they were playing a bit in the same kind of category.
So just for anyone who doesn't know, Contrada is kind of the equivalent of a Cru, right? It's could you say that? It's a single vineyard site.
Yes. It's you can say that definitely, but I really insist on the fact that there is not one sitting on the other like Cru, Premier Cru, or Grand. Exactly. They are just identified as top quality site. Funny enough, talking with the producer, the name of the Contrada in the Etna were quite often attached to the name of the family who was owning it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, then I realized that it was not always the case. But I like
that would be lovely. That would be romantic.
I like that romance, exactly.
Yeah.
Going back to the topic, if we look at Nebbiolo, Nerello Mascalese for the red, I will only speak about the reds, nothing bad about Barolo and Piedmont. But I still think that if we talk about the whites, Etna is probably talking a little bit louder with a bit more background. But if we focus on the comparison on the red, Nebbiolo, high tannins, very good acidity, long-term maturation on the vine and long-term maturation in the cantina, in the winery. Nerello Mascalese, high maturity, late maturity when it comes to the harvest. Both of them are still harvesting in October. Funny enough, some vintages in the last 5 years, where we talk about global warming, are still picked around the 15th to the 20th of August. So the long maturation cycle is very important and is due to the climate. Then I think they both tolerate very well old oak, but also new oak. We have an example of a different winery in Barolo and in the Etna. And now we're going to have the third romance topic, but they have a sort of I call them the red with high minerality. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'll just say the word minerality, which could ended up in 15 different episodes and we still will not have the solution. But they have this sort of profile that just takes you from one place, matches your tongue, palate, combines with your acids, and delivers a very aerial profile, flirting with a hint of volatile acidity, such lovely, well integrated, and length and purity. That's where I will go. But we still imagine that they are one from the north, one from the south. And of course, there are two grape varieties that just are resilient, reluctant, and really submissive to the site where they are grown.
Okay.
That's why I love these grapes.
Okay, and and I think the comparison is fair. So to sum up, really, one of the key points is that it's about site specificity.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. I can't even say it, and I'm English. But site specific, you're comparing the Contrada, of which there are loads, right, in Etna, 130 something.
133,
crazy.
sometimes I read 132. Let's make it more than 130.
More than 130, which is more than they've done in Barolo. But I guess also what's interesting, as you say, they've got these two hero red grapes that are a lovely Italian combination of volatile acidity and minerality and all of these things. They age well. They need long time hanging on the vine. So, yeah, okay, I'm sold. I'm sold on your comparison.
The only thing I will mention is probably there is both of them are hidden games, because if we talk about hectares, there are two small, pretty similar appellation. Barolo is 1,600 more or less. There it's 1,500. But I also think that they are very strong pillar of the historical tradition of viticulture in general in Italy, because they really enforce the dimension of native grapes in their region.
Yeah. Nothing
against international grape, even if I realize that even Mondes is grown in Sicily.
Yes.
But some generation probably have been engaging the Cabernet Sauvignon discussion and things like that. But they, for me, confirm the element of indigenous grape in their native region, grown by the native, because we must also mention that Etna, one growers, you don't have many international investors, same for Barolo. And the land belongs to the growers. That's really important to mention, and that's where you give really the expression that I love, the sense of a place.
Nice, I like it. So whilst we're on the reds, well, let's go back to the whites in a second, but whilst we're on the reds, let's just clear up what those grapes are. So you've got Etna Rosso. You've already mentioned it. That has to be 80% Nerello Mascalese, minimum.
Yep.
So the focus is on Nerello Mascalese.
Yes.
And then you're allowed to blend other things. So another Nerello, Cappuccio. And then you're also allowed to blend basically 10%, up to 10% of other stuff.
Exactly.
Which can even include some white grapes.
Exactly.
If you then see Reserva on the label, Reserva on a Rosso, means that it's 4 years minimum age.
Okay, age. Okay. So pretty similar once again to some regulation that we have with
Barolo.
the cousins from the north.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I would agree. They're very similar structures in that sense. So those are your reds from Etna, I should say. Obviously, Sicily itself has other grapes.
Many more, exactly.
Particular favorite of mine, which we'll talk about in the light red session, Frappato. But we'll we'll focus on this. And Nerello Mascalese, you beautifully described as this kind of like slightly volatile acidity, mineral red. What kind of fruits should people expect from a good Nerello Mascalese as well?
Well, actually, I drank a few over the past few months, and I would say that the Nerello Mascalese has this. It's flashy, not in a bad way. It's got that sort of like red fruit driven, a lot of flesh, a good intensity without being over the top. But it's when I say red driven, it's like shiny in a way, and don't expect anything cooked or overripe or dark or
quite tart.
Brew through, and the floral character, which I think there is a sort in the wine world in general at the moment, that floral component into Grenache Noir or into Pinot Noir or many others elevates wines and gives a level of subtlety and delicacy that I find amazing. Still, bear in mind that Nerello Mascalese, and when I was giving that lecture last year, 14.5%, 15%,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
still behaves like if it was 12.
12.5, yeah,
So
agreed.
that's what I would say. Like, it's don't stop to what is written on the label, because the overall characteristic and the overall balance of the wine gives you such a sense of bright and liveliness on the palate. They're not big, dark, rich, and bold.
Yeah.
There is many other regions that are allowed and capable to do incredible style like this. But I think the Etna has the sort of like delicacy.
Love that. Okay, so now, Alex, please can you tell us about the whites? Because you said it perfectly. I'm allowed to badmouth regions because I don't work directly with them. Etna punches above its weight on the whites compared to its big brother, or whatever you want to call it, Barolo, right? So tell us about those lovely white wines.
Actually, Etna DOC, it's equal. More or less, it's 46% red, 42% white. So whites are very important. The standard on the label, Etna DOC white, 60%, Carricante, and then you will have Catarrotto, there is two types of Catarrotto, Catarrotto Bianco Comune, or Catarrotto Bianco Lucido. Then any other grape like Trebbiano or Minella Bianca. But back in the days, when it was the production of Marsala, you had a lot of Grillo around that was used then for Marsala. But going back to our Carricante and Catarrotto. But there is also one mention on the label that you are quite aware of. If there is Bianco Superiore, which means
80%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you up the Carricante. Carricante is seen as the sort of more premium, right? Although I would argue, Catarrotto for me can be really lovely as well, but Carricante is seen as the
workhorse. Like is the one Carricante, which is defining the DNA of white wine for Etna Bianco. Carricante, quick background on it if you want.
Yes, please.
Carricante, caricare in Italian, which means loaded. It can make quite an incredible amount of quantity. So you have to restrain it. Once again, I think for many Mediterranean wine region, it works. Assyrtiko, Claret White, they all need to be a bit, it's like us. If we sit by the sun with a lot of food, we're not going to do much.
It's a good reflection of the lifestyle of Sicily, right?
Yeah, I've used this one many times in restaurants. Then it's low in alcohol, high acidity, and it's quite loaded in what we call TDN. TDN, which is the shorter name of the molecule that you find also in Riesling, which will include that sort of like kerosene or petrol flavor.
Aromas, yeah.
And I witnessed it with more than 10 years old. It's there. It's really there. And that's once again a sort of constant with a very specific warm climate, because warmer you get, higher the intensity of this molecule will increase. It resists very well to humidity, and its sweet spot for white wine in the fourth section that we mentioned is really the eastern one, where you have that commune of Milo, where Superior is only made. And Catarrotto, let's not forget Catarrotto.
I love Catarrotto. Everybody thinks it's the rubbish one because it's the lower percentage, but it's not. It's good, great.
Yeah, it's actually DNA-wise for the geek. It has a parentage with Garganega in the Soave. Yes. And it's a good blending companion. It's actually bringing fruit and a sort of mineral component. And the two type that I've mentioned, the Comune and the Lucido, they're two biotype. So they came from the original Carricante. And that's the two white. Then there is many others, but we're not going to go crazy on this. But if there is such a high production of whites, I think there is a little bit of sparkling made, no?
There is. You're a big advocate for the sparkling. I mean, I think, it's hard to get hold of, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Outside of actually visiting Etna Spumante is a bit of a rarity, but Etna Spumante is a great drink. It's classic method. Classical method, so it's Leesy. We didn't mention actually Lees on the white wines.
Yes,
you're
right.
Beautiful Lees aged, right? Etna.
Very
Bianco.
Important one.
Really important.
Yes, thanks for bringing me back to this. It's very important when we that we're going to discuss a bit later, like Benanti, Terre Nere, and so on and so on. The lees aging, once again, we can do a small geek part. But
Yep, geek out.
Mediterranean country, feeding the wine with lees is very important. And I just realized, not a long time ago, with a lot of discussion, that probably when the malolactic fermentation is done, which means that when it's done on every red wine, but for white you can choose to stop it or not, the salvating bitter element that you can have, so bitter is a bit the substitute of acid in Mediterranean region. It will add an extra level of complexity.
So if you want to make them a bit more complex, you can kind of increase this bitterness if you don't have the natural acid in your white
exactly.
wine, right?
And we are looking at Vietnam because you have the acidity, the natural acidity, combined with this, which for me makes it even more exciting into the finished wine. And feeding the wine with this lees when this malolactic has been done tends to give texture, complexity. There is something to, once again, analyze. And once again, the scientists will give us the answer, I'm sure, within the next couple of decades. But I realize that extended lees aging for this kind of wine gives you astonishing result. I have many examples in mind. And yes, they're super food friendly and super eye-catching also as soon as you drop the nose. I remember last weekend we had lunch and we drank a wonderful Etna white. So, yes, that's pretty much what I would say about going back to the sparkling discussion. They're not really easy to get their hands on. But I like bubbles, and there is still good value for money. I drink a lot of cava in Spain. I drink a lot of other sparkling from northern Italy. But once again, when you have naturally high acid profile, you can make great sparkling. And they implemented a minimum of 18 months of lees aging before being released. So and they increased a few years ago the Catarrotto and the Nerello Mascalese content. They changed the regulation, which means that there is a sort of like really high potential, top quality sparkling traditional method in the Etna DOC. Once again, wanting to sip by the sea over there.
I think that's a top tip for listeners as well. We've gone quite technical on lees and et cetera, but effectively what we're saying when we're talking about lees aging and sparkling is it's more akin to things like champagne that have this long time on the dead yeast cells. You add complexity, you add roundness, you add texture, you add a little bit of a doughy character, and if you can support all of that alongside the bright, lively acidity, you have a very complex, very, very refreshing, enjoyable, delicious sparkling wine. So for anyone who's less familiar with Etna Spumante meaning sparkling as well, for anyone who's less familiar and thinks that I'm just sort of spitting on my microphone, Spumante. So you can get it in white and rosato.
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
So you can get it Blanco, so rosé and white styles. And if you do see it in your local wine shop or on a wine list, try it.
Yes, 100%. Good, I think.
Wow, we covered a lot.
We covered a lot. A little bit geeky, I agree. But what I will say at this time of the day, we're recording late morning and talking about white wine and sparkling. I think it's time to open up something.
Let's open it up, sure. And I have to say, Alex, it was really nice to hear a Frenchman talk so glowingly about another country.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I can only praise the fact that Italy is increasing its sales in France every year of 1%.
Ah, cool.
So they are a group of people that I have to say I'm quite impressed into the way they engage other people and the way they speak very, very proudly of their home region. I'm convinced to be working alongside them.
Well, let's celebrate with a glass of Etna Bianco, I think.
Let's go.